and they attract clingy partners. The clingy and the distant are always together. What happens is the avoidant person always attracts the clingy, because if a distant independent person met another distant independent woman, they don't have the glue to keep them together.
To claim that the clingy and distant are always together, or that avoidants always attract clingy partners, is not exactly true. The truth is a little bit more nuanced than that. But first off, the label clingy, which carries a stigma, is inappropriate to be used in this context by any professional psychologist or therapist. So instead of clingy, let's call it anxiously attached. So first off, avoidants don't necessarily always attract anxious partners. What is true is that avoidant behavior tends to increase anxiousness in the partners they attract. So even a secure person may start acting more anxious than normal, simply in reaction to the avoidant behavior. This happens because attachment styles do not exist in vacuum, but are affected in a mutual dynamic, so it could be diminished or heightened. Now, a more secure person, in turn, can soothe an anxious partner or even an avoidant partner. It also depends on the degree of the dysfunction. A more severe avoidant, for example, can incite anxiousness, not just in a secure partner, but even someone who's actually veering on avoidance themselves. It can also go the other way. For example, they might trigger another avoidant to react even more avoidantly. And when this happens, then we can say that there is not enough emotional glue to keep both parties in connection as required for a relationship. Now, to make things even more murky, a lot of avoidance can gaslight and label healthy, secure, or even borderline avoidant individuals into believing that they are too clingy or needy, quote unquote. And this can be used to shame and stigmatize them, when this label is actually completely untrue in their case. Now, in my practice, I come across a lot of cases of individuals who are so ashamed of their so-called clinginess, or otherwise they can incorrectly believe that they are anxiously attached or clingy or needy, when they are in fact functioning in a perfectly healthy manner and they do not have any avoidance or attachment issues like that. So some of this incorrect labeling is also carried out by so-called online coaches or therapists who spout pop psychology, and they can propagate stigmatizing misinformation. And these can be based on very generic assumptions. And more unfortunately, many people, vulnerable people, traumatized people, a lot of women especially, can believe these kinds of assumptions about themselves when they come across it on social media. They believe it without question, and they can even become so attached to that narrative, to that belief system, to that idea about themselves, based on these false myths. And what happens then is that the healing and recovery process for them becomes more difficult and complex and challenging, because they aren't actually addressing the real issues. They are thinking there's a problem with them when there actually isn't. So they need to first of all recognize what the real problem is and what the real problem isn't.